Tonight at the University of Sydney, Professor Noam Chomsky will be awarded Australia's only International Prize for Peace. Last night, Noam Chomsky delivered the City of Sydney Peace Prize lecture in the Sydney Town Hall. Now, Noam Chomsky, as you know, has been leading at least 3 very busy, distinguished lives: linguist, philosopher, and political activist. A great number of questions were submitted to the Opera House for this session, and they fell into about broadly a dozen categories. And I'm going to put a question to Professor Chomsky in each category that will attempt to reflect the main thrust of your interests. And we will also try and take some questions from the floor later in the interests of free speech. Now, Noam Chomsky is Institute Professor and Emeritus Professor in the Department of Linguistics and Philosophy at MIT. Among other things, that means that he can supervise PhDs in any faculty. Hailed even by his critics as arguably the most important intellectual alive, he ranks with Marx, Shakespeare, and the Bible as one of the 10 most quoted sources in the humanities. In addition to his significant work in linguistics and philosophy, though, he is celebrated for his unfailing moral courage and the inspiration and oxygen he has given globally to the cause of peace with justice. Please welcome the 2011 recipient of the Sydney Peace Prize, Noam Chomsky. Welcome to Australia, Noam.
Glad to be here.
In your lecture last night, you essentially talked about an integral part of what constitutes a civilised human being. You said one of the great moral and universal responsibilities is to address injustice and the grievances that are at the heart of much violence, and in particular to cease to be complicit on crimes for which we share responsibility. And you also reminded us that our wealth in no small measure derives from the tragedy of others, that we support dictators when it suits us and happily set aside the rule of law when we've had a change of heart. And my question is this: how can we reconcile what you're advocating with the 3 most frequently used words to engender unquestionable public legitimacy? The national interest. Indeed, given that so many of our problems are global, how are they to be tackled when we are each protecting our national interests?
Well, that's an interesting term, national interest. Of course, it's the core notion of academic international relations theory, so-called realist international relations theories, based on the concept that states pursue their national interest. It's always seemed to me that the concept is very far from realistic. In fact, has a touch of mysticism about it. It assumes that there's a common national interest shared by everyone in the country. So the CEO